Welcome back. We've been talking just this last little piece about the idea that we can help people gather up stories that fit with their hopes for themselves. And by gathering up those stories, we can, in a sense, make a new narrative about who am I or who are we. And we can look at that through our own eyes, and we can look at it through the eyes of others. And that sense of new identity, that can be like a cloak or a kind of a guide to how I might be next in the world. Kind of a development of a new reputation or something like that. And we use this diagram for that. 3 stories that fit with the hope of what it is that we're aiming for becoming. Now, I just want to pay some attention to this lovely old saying, which is that that identity is a social achievement. That we don't get to kind of, it's all very well for me to say, I want to become like this, but the people around me, the more they can support me in that, the more my community stands with me in that, the more likely it is that this will come to be. So in the diagram, I put 4 little arrows like this underneath, just to remind me that it's really important that we recruit people to this story, to this preferred story. That people are audience, this notion of telling and retelling. The more I can take the story and tell it to the people who matter to me, the more power it has in my life. And these 4 arrows, in my mind, speak to 4 different sets of practices. The first one is gathering an audience to listen. Call that outsider witnessing. So we might gather an audience of people to come in, to sit with us. If you were the person I was working with, I would interview you about what it is that you're preferring in your life, perhaps where you came from and what it is that you're heading towards, and then I could ask them to reflect on what it was that you just said. Right. I speak more about that in that wee book there, about the detail of that. But if you want to Google anything to do with outsider witnessing, you'll see lots of writing on that subject. So gathering a group of people to deliberately reflect on what they're hearing when you speak this new story, and to feed back to you how that connects with their own lives. That's a powerful way of supporting this preferred identity. Another way that we can tell and retell the story or enrich the story is at the end of the conversation. I might have taken notes while you were talking. Those notes can be produced back to you in the form of some sort of document. Both to you and to others. So letters, certificates, statements of achievement, invitations to people to come. All of these kinds of pieces of writing which state something about what it is that I'm moving towards. So we've got inviting people to listen, and we've got writing documents that make a difference. Another really interesting form of gathering up the community that stands with me in my preferred hopes is called the Tree of Life. And I'm not going to speak to it particularly here, but again, it's written about in that book, and more importantly, it's if you look online, there's lots of stuff about the Tree of Life, including a Facebook group and all sorts of stuff about it. But it's such an important way of gathering up a sense of what's my history. So if you imagine a tree in the ground, what's my history? Where do I come from? Who are the people who stand in my history? And what's my now? Who stands with me in my now? And what all of that, what does it make available to me? The sorts of skills in terms of my trunk, the sort of skills and characteristics that I have, and kind of through branches. Where is that taking me in life? And what fruit is that producing in my life? All this whakapapa, all this history, this kind of relational history.
I was thinking whakapapa as you were talking.
The Māori notion of kind of we stand not as individuals, but we stand in a collective, and a Christian notion too, I imagine. And all of that through to the leaves of noticing who are the people, all the way through. It's all about who are the people who produce this me. So the notion of identity as a social achievement is beautifully storied in that metaphor of Tree of Life. And yet another way that we can take the story and tell it is through the actions that we do. So that if I want to take up a different way of parenting in life, for instance, if I want to be known perhaps as a different sort of parent to the one I have been, then the way I enact myself as a parent is one of the ways that this gets published. This news story gets published through my actions. I might get involved with groups of people. I might get involved in volunteering. I might get involved with all manner of things that have me performing a new identity.
Right, right.
So the important point here is that whatever the stories, that the preferred stories that get kind of cooked up in this reauthoring process, it's really important that we find ways to stitch those together with other people, with communities of people, through these practices and others.
Because the old stories can be pretty tenacious, can't they? They can really hang on and have an effect.
They can be persistent.
Yeah. So this new emerging story needs all the support and help it can get.
Oh, that's a lovely phrase, isn't it? Kind of makes me think of a plant just coming up and let's look after it. And one of the ways we look after it is we wrap it up in a community of care, both of other people and our involvement. Yeah. So these are practices of telling and retelling, practices of audience.
Great.
Thank you.